Oh, here we are, 7:30. Thanks, you guys, for coming. We're going to get underway very soon. Thanks for muting for now. Hey, guys. So we've got you all on mute for now because we're going to, Carolyn and I, when we're doing our presentation, we're going to command the microphone, and we're definitely going to open it up in a little bit. I let you in a couple minutes early because I saw you there, Don. I wanted to say hi. Welcome. Thanks for coming, you guys. We know there are a few people coming into the waiting room, and once we get a little critical mass of a handful of people, we'll get rolling.
Get her. I made it another one. Chelsea's here.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right. Chelsea, I don't see you, but I know you're here. Welcome. I'm obliged to have my camera on, so you're gonna have to look at me.
Well, we have another person.
You can make faces at me now. I won't be able to tell.
There was another one, Grant. We lost them. We lost them.
Oh, Patricia is there. So right now, so I'm on Spotlight. Awesome. Okay. Well, what do you say, Carolyn?
Sure.
7:31 TikTok. All right. Where are we here? All right. Well, we are 7:31. We're going to get underway. I want to welcome everybody to Live New Mart, the Heights virtual edition. This is a big deal for us here in Burnaby right now. And welcome to the dining room. Welcome as well to folks who are joining us from as far away as Ontario and Mexico and the Cayman Islands. Very exciting that we've gone global. This is really cool. My name is Grant Withers. I'll be doing the first session here in the living room, and I'm sharing the room with Carolyn Sullivan, another photographer here in Burnaby. There she is up in the upper corner there. She'll be talking to you guys about her photography and her practice in about 20 minutes when I'm done. I'll be showing you some of my art and sharing my process with you, but really I'm just letting you peek inside my head and showing me how I see the world. And maybe by the time we're done together tonight, the way you see the world will shift a little bit too. As time is tight, I'll ask that you keep your mics muted for now and hold on to your questions or type them into the chat. And we'll definitely have a Q&A session later, and I'd love to hear your comments at that time. And for the best viewing experience possible, I'd recommend that you expand your Zoom window to full screen mode, whatever device you're on, and switch to speaker view so that my art and I are as big as possible so you don't miss a thing. And I do realize that there's lots going on tonight in all the other meetings. So if at any time you feel like you want to leave and check out someone else's art, visit another room for a performance, feel free, no problem, no insults taken. Just make sure you click the leave button at the bottom of your Zoom window and navigate back to the home page where all the links are, where you went to before getting here. Maybe, I don't know if you read my bio on the site, but in a nutshell, I want to tell you a bit about me. I'm a visually curious, multidisciplinary artist pushing photography into uncharted territory. My photography ranges from traditional to abstract and even surreal. And on top of that, I've started incorporating sculpture and even art installation into my practice. And my motto, never stop playing, drives what I do, and my goal is to break photography so that I can play with the pieces. I'm exploring, I'm experimenting, I'm breaking the rules and having a lot of fun. So I wanted to share with you some of my art, because that's kind of why you're here. It's not just to listen to me. So I'm going to do a little screen share. Bear with me while I get our technology going. All right, Carolyn, are we up and running with our slideshow here?
Yes, you are, Grant.
All right, thank you. No, can't do that. All right. There we go. So I love photographing old stuff, old places, they're gritty and rough textures, and I love the stories that they tell. If you're the same way, I suggest you look into a Japanese aesthetic or worldview known as wabi-sabi. It's about the beauty of impermanence and imperfection. And another great word for you Scrabble players out there is a word called palimpsest. Palimpsest. I've added that to the chat box so you can look those up at your leisure. It's an interesting field. Wabi-sabi and palimpsest have led me into the back alleys, the old industrial neighborhoods, the rougher parts of town here in Metro Vancouver and even around the world. The grittier, the better sometimes for me. Wave at me out there if if wabi-sabi is in your purview and you like the faded edges and the cracks and the interesting character of all the things out there. Awesome. Yeah, the sidewalk cracks, the peeling paint on the old shop doorsteps, all the things that foot traffic creates and time reveals is fascinating for me. So all of these shots that I'm showing you here, all these sort of final pieces, are based on photos that I took on the streets. And not only are they street photography, but some of them are actually photographs of the street. And another big influence for me is hard edge painting, hard edge abstract painting, and the bold lines and shapes and colors around us in the urban environment are front and center in a lot of my works too. Carolyn, could you give me a hand with watching the time? I forgot to set a timer when I got underway. Give me a heads up when we're about 10 minutes or 5 minutes away. Feel free to just interrupt or something. Thank you. So, and if I could paint, if I picked up a paintbrush, these are the kind of paintings that I would make. So this is kind of how I see, how I like to produce my art. So there's a playfulness between hard and soft, and old and new going on here. And a lot of these works are made by combining multiple images and textures I have photographed, sometimes at different times and in different locations. Right out of camera, some of those photos might stand alone as a sublime minimalist art piece, but more often than not, they add to the ever-expanding catalog of source material that I've been building over the years. And then I use those in the more complex pieces like the ones you're seeing here. So I might spend 20 minutes photographing cracks in the sidewalk or lines and patterns on a newly painted tennis court, much to my dog's chagrin. Her name is Shadow, and pretty soon she's going to start demanding credit on some of my art because she's super patient with me when we go on our walks. She hates it when I pick up my camera when we're doing our dog walks. So I'll take some of this source material, my photos of cracks or power lines or tennis court lines, running shoes, and I'll digitally blend or collage them together so that their stories and their graphic elements intertwine. And I find it really gratifying when to print and handle and then hang my art and get it off my computer. And some of you tonight may even have my art in your homes, and I feel honored knowing that some of you see my art every day and you look at it, and that makes me smile. So thank you for that.
It's not my problem. She can't get on.
So I can photograph two totally unrelated things in separate locations and layer them in Photoshop and play with them a little bit and create a relationship that doesn't actually exist in real life. There's a sense of illusion or mystery or magic going on. It's kind of exciting to do that. For example, I can take lines or patterns which exist in a three-dimensional space, which is normally how I shoot, and then make them look like they were painted on a flat canvas. So that's it's a really interesting flip of reality sometimes. Once an object has been plucked from its surroundings and familiar points of reference, like light and shadow, scale, and even gravity, I can turn it into anything I want. It's a bit like alchemy, actually. And that's kind of what you're seeing here. So that was a bit of what I do. So I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit here. So I've shown you what I do, and this is only a small slice, I have to admit. This is a slice of what I do, and now I want to show you how I do it. This behind the scenes video I want to show you of the live edit, totally raw. I wasn't sure what I was going to come up with, but I wanted to show you guys what goes on when I start digging into this stuff and making things. So I want to share another screen here. And we're going to go to, where are we here? Look at that one. It's about a minute and a half long, not even. So bear with me, here we go.
It's not sharing.
Technical question. Did you guys see a video with music just go by?
No.
You're kidding me, really?
No.
No, all we saw is a spinning wheel.
I saw.
I had a great show over here. What are you guys talking about?
Chris,
Okay. Carolyn, what did you see?
no, I saw nothing. A gray screen. I typed you said I'm not seeing
You
anything.
guys were super patient. You're still here even after seeing that. All right, let's try that again.
Grant,
Okay.
make sure to press the share button on the bottom right of your screen once you select your share.
Well, I double clicked it, but all right, let's try again.
Share your screen and then
Click
select your share.
player, share screen. All right, Carolyn, how are we looking? Can you see a black screen right now?
Black screen.
There you go.
Okay. Can you see all
There
that
we
going
go.
by?
Yep. Yep. Now I
Okay.
can see it.
All right.
There we go.
Thanks, you guys, for the heads up.
I'm only seeing a quarter of your screen, I believe.
Can you change it to full
You-
screen?
Got it.
All right, tell me you guys saw that.
Applause.
Yay,
applause,
yay,
applause.
awesome. Oh, thank you. Thanks, guys. Well, yeah, thanks for hanging in there with me. That first one wasn't really just a privacy issue. You know, I actually did want to share my stuff with you. I wasn't trying to hide it. Yeah, that's kind of what it might look like if I were to, spend 20 minutes really like either shooting for a particular end product in mind or going through my inventory to figure out what I think would work really well and what might not. So I could spend an hour, many hours doing the same thing on one of those shots to really make it just right. And I'd be going back and forth into my inventory saying, no, that wasn't right, or I need something that has a little darker shadow on it or something. But that was just a little taster. Do you guys have any comments or any questions about that those 2 shows, or that 1 show you saw, the 2 shows that I saw. Feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to chime in, even if you just want to say, woohoo!
Woohoo!
Oh, I knew you'd do that, Christine. I knew you would do it. Great at playing along. So you can kind of get a feel for what my dog walks look like, right? That was the tennis court up in my neighborhood, or maybe even been one in East Vancouver. And I see these lines, I see these shapes, and they become, some of them are just like paintings sitting there. I'm like, I gotta record this and then play with it, do something with it. So I don't wet any brushes, I don't have anything to clean up. It's actually pretty sweet. And then I get back here, and then I can actually put them together in different ways to remove them from a horizontal tennis court, and now I'm putting them up on your wall as a piece of 2-dimensional art going this way. So it's kind of fun. Very exciting. Sid, how are we doing on time, Chris? Carolyn, we're at 7:45. We're good. Can I show you one more film?
Yeah.
It's gonna work. It's gonna work this time. I promise. Fingers crossed. With Jim's advice, I'm going to see if this works. Yes. And Christine, feel free to call me on it if I'm totally wrong here. Here we go. All right, I'm going to give you that one. No, not that one. I showed you that one already. There we go. Do you see a big,
I see your tennis court.
okay, stop sharing. You've seen tennis courts already.
I did see the tennis court with the ball.
Yeah. Is that different?
Yes, that's your
The carnival
roller
one.
coaster.
Okay, here we go.
It's not flipping, Grant.
It's not working?
It's not working. Just the final image is here.
What is that, Carolyn?
Just the final image is here, Grant. There's no
You don't see anything?
animation. There's no video.
Dude, what are you guys doing wrong?
Well, that's too bad, because that's a really interesting piece that Grant had. We saw it the other day. So,
Are you seeing
okay,
anything right
Grant.
now?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a little better.
Okay.
Okay. We'll start at the beginning. Oh, you guys are awesome.
Okay, no animation yet?
Not yet. Are we good, Carolyn?
We don't have an animation happening, Grant. We just have the lovely pieces of pictures.
But they're beautiful, Grant.
Yeah, but
So
no animation.
You're not seeing any editing going on?
No, I'm not seeing what I saw the other day. There's no animation happening.
Going close.
I'm not sure why we're getting that feedback.
Close out of here.
Yeah. But I'm going to lose a lot of customers right now. Look at everybody leaving. I don't blame you. All right. Do you see?
I see a finished product.
You don't see anything moving?
No, no animation, Grant.
All right. Let's try taking everybody over here. Do you see a blue and white photograph? A blue photo?
No, I just see you, hun.
I'm not that interesting.
Set your share screen up, Grant.
Yeah. Let's try that. No. What do you see? Anything?
I see a picture that looks like a landscape with lots of green grass. Abstract.
And no moving. No moving.
No moving. I'm not getting any animation.
Do you see a title?
No title.
Oh, that's disappointing. Well, what I'm going to do is see. You know what? We're at 7:50. I'm supposed to stop at 7:50.
Time goes by when you're
Time
having
goes
fun.
by when you're. Yeah. See, it's an art, not a science, right? That's what they say. No, it's supposed to be a science.
Any questions for Grant?
Yeah, I'd love. Yeah, not technical questions about Zoom. Don't even think about it. Let me get the chat going here.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, please. Thank
How
you.
long does it usually take you to do one of your pictures? Like from beginning to end?
Beginning to end. One of the ones that I showed a while ago, the tennis court one that had maybe only 4 or 5 layers.
Yes.
That one like literally took me 5 minutes, 5 to 6 minutes. So that I condensed that down to about 1 minute for the show. But some can take, as I'm tweaking and really picky about it, and half an hour, several hours. I might revisit it multiple times. But that's for some of the more complex ones.
Wow.
That you may have seen if my videos worked.
Wow.
I'll be doing another slideshow of some still images a little later on after I hand over things to Carolyn and then come back. So hopefully I'll work out some of the glitches between now and then.
Okay, thank you.
You guys were awesome. You guys were super patient. Thanks for the question. I have used up my Zoom time for now, but I will be back in about 20 minutes or so. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. I'm going to turn the Zoom room over to my partner in crime here, Carolyn. And I'll leave you with the words, never stop playing, you guys. Stay inspired, stay creative. Carolyn has gone over to Spotlight. Carolyn, over to you. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you, Grant.
Thank you.
Okay. Hey, this is really an interesting event for us, and I appreciate it. And I see so many faces I know. Oh my goodness, I'm just so honored that you have followed me to my new adventure. This has just been so exciting. We have people from other countries even on here. Donna, it's so wonderful to see you. And all over the province and Toronto, everybody. So welcome and thank you. And we really appreciate this. My approach to this event was personal, was taking the COVID experience and turning it into that. I found that I was kind of grieving myself about a lost missed trip to Europe. And so what happened is I kind of sat frozen. I had no creative energy, even though there was lots of time to be creative. I just found I couldn't do anything. I just sat and looked at old photographs of past trips and reorganized and re-looked at them. And then a friend, Linda Moncure, is a meditative guide and a yoga instructor, and she asked if I would come out and photograph her and do a video. And so I went out and she showed me about a meditative garden. And I thought, oh, wow, I have all that in my garden. I have some path, I have a water fountain, and I have lots of boulders and a place to sit down. So I went home and the next day started doing the breathing exercises that she had taught me and that we had videotaped. But being a photographer, I took my camera with me. So I started taking pictures daily and I just got so into it. It was like every day was a different surprise. And I just want to read some of the stuff that I wrote about it. But I just found that the spring bulbs were starting to bloom and the eye candy of the color that they provided pulled me into the present moment. So with the macro lens, the tiny blooms implored me to pay attention. The stamens appeared as delicate blooms opening up, demanding that I got closer and closer and closer, and even have a conversation with them. Mindful practice trains us to approach life with an open, to notice different layers of reality and not to waste time stressing out. And we share the space with others, factors affecting our presence that we might have to work around. For an example, the wind to a small floral could be like a hurricane in the Caymans. And so as a photographer, I had to alter shutter speeds. Floral photography teaches us value of looking at things, different angles, different perspectives, different times of the day, and how light and shadow play on the colors of the blooms. And I had lots of experience of working with the elements of art, so that of course all detailed its way into it. So for an example, I learned or relearned that a red flower is best photographed on an overcast day or early in the morning, and a yellow and an orange flower was best photographed late in the afternoon already with the yellow colors in the sky. And I found I started to look forward to going out each day to see the buds and the blooms, and I had time to wait for an ant to cross the petals, and I could wait for a bee to land on the petals so that my camera was focused on it. Mindful photography brings us to the present in that moment and encourages us to enjoy it. That is the healing power of mindfulness. My flowers were an important reminder that there's still beauty to be found. It is not all contagion and risk, a huge break from being housebound. I found that being in my garden enabled me not to worry, not to think about the crazy tweet of the day that circulated the earth, or what the numbers were on World Meter were. Mindful photography focuses on the journey, not the destination, and each moment I was in the garden, it did have my full attention. I felt calmer, my clarity of vision is sharp, and I felt very creative. Self-expression started to bloom with the flowers. I knew the flash of beauty of the blossoms might only last 24 hours. And here, the rain, who knows, the rain could just destroy the petals, the delicacy the next day. So I found it really, really enjoyable. So during this period, the rainbow became a symbol of hope right around the world, a sense of community. And I had did a lot of work with children in the rainbow in my years of artist in residence. So I just really have been always into rainbows. And so each day I realized that I'm sitting in a whole rainbow of flowers. So being in a garden and having the conversations with my flowers and getting right up to them really close. And it really kind of made me not think about social distancing because I'm right up close having face-to-face conversations with these flowers. So each day new colors appeared, fresh blooms appeared. And each day I started photographing and the natural rainbow. So strangers started walking by and commenting on the garden and how it was joyful to them, which was really pleasant because more and more people are walking in our neighborhood. And I knew I had to share this with some friends and relatives who weren't only dealing with the COVID, but they were dealing with a lot of loss and personal tragedy on an additional issue. So I created a small booklet and sent it out by snail mail. So I sent a whole bunch of people that, and it was really positive. And then plus I put the show together for this, because when I was first invited into this, even though I had showcased for 4 years, I had no idea what I would want to showcase. So I want to show you a slideshow. It's all just pretty eye candy pictures of the garden, of my garden, my florals, and then I'm going to come back and hopefully you have some questions. Okay, so just take me a minute to set up, please. So, okay, where's my sound?
How's that?
Okay, sound, share screen, hit. No, this isn't the right one. Hi, I'm back. I just want to show you just a few more pictures because we missed a few because I got carried away and didn't start at the start. So I'm just going to go back to share and just show you a few more, okay? There. Okay, so I'm gonna unmute you guys now. I see, is there some chat? Oh, Pauline, thank you. Thank you, Anna, Sean, stunning. I'm gonna unmute you all. Or I'm going to allow you to unmute yourself. Okay, so if anybody wants to talk, you can unmute yourself just by hitting the thing, ask to unmute. Is there any questions?
I have a question, Carolyn, to kick things off.
Okay.
You commented that you're spending a lot of time in your own backyard, sort of immersing yourself in the colors in this small space. What recommendations did you have for other people who want to sort of create a space like that of their own?
Okay, well, you know what? We are so lucky that we live in such a beautiful province with flowers everywhere, actually. Queen Elizabeth Park, here in the north, actually, one of the best places in North Burnaby is up on the hill, Simon Fraser Hill, and soon the roses will all start to bloom. So in June, if you want to have eye candy for the day, go up to North Burnaby and photograph the roses. It's absolutely gorgeous. But there is so many wildflowers, there's so many just flowers, but greenery itself, I put in a lot of greens you saw. Greens are beautiful too, and the textures on wood is so gorgeous also. So I think it's unlimited what you could photograph.
Cool.
Sean and, oh, sorry, Grant, do you have a question?
Nope, thank you.
Okay.
Carolyn, I loved how beautifully you spoke to your work, and I really felt like in watching it, you brought us into this very sense of this mindful presence because there's just such a luscious, voluptuous detail. I loved seeing it. It was just so beautiful.
Oh, thank you very much for the kind words. I have to say that these flowers really helped me a lot, and I think I've been able to spread it to help other people. So I wasn't somebody who could go work as a first line respondent, and had I been 20, let me tell you, I would have had my camera out there and I would have been documenting this whole thing, but because I have underlying issues, I can't afford to do that or choose not to do it. Alfie, do you have a question?
Oh, I was just going to say, were they all taken with the macro lens?
No, they weren't. I actually played, and I even threw in a cell or two pictures just to show that it's all possible to do with the cell. So cell photos are in there. I used a macro 85 f4. I used a 50, just a standard mil lens, 50, and I use one of the lenses I have that I really like for macro is an old glass filter that is like a 105 from my own Nikon camera days. And with that, you can only shoot in manual, and you really have a beautiful glass effect. If you saw them up close, even closer and bigger, you'll see the glass effect. So I used a little bit of everything.
No tripod?
You know what? I'm a really lazy photographer these days. So to tell you the truth, not one with tripod. Yeah. I put it on the ground and shot up on a few, but none of those are in it. But today's technology is so wonderful with the ISO. we can raise our ISO up so high that you can, I start actually at 320. So if you guys know what ISO is, I started at 320. And my main concern is wind. I need to have enough shutter speed to stop the wind. And on some days, literally, you have to shoot 600, 800 to stop the wind on a little flower because it's like a hurricane for them. So, okay. So any last questions? Because my time is up. If
Okay,
you
well-
stay. Oh, hi, Donna.
Yeah, I don't know anything about photography, but
Hi, Bill.
beautiful. All your photographs were beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Do you recognize this one? You own
Yes.
this one, I think, in the back.
Yes, yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
That's
she
beautiful.
lives in the Caymans and she has beautiful flowers. If you come back for my second show, it's all manipulation. It's just taking the flowers and playing with them. But I'm going to pass this back to Grant. It's his turn. So thank you. Kisses to
Thanks,
everybody.
Carolyn.
Carolyn, it
What
was
time are you going to be
wonderful.
up?
Well, you get 20 minutes, then I'll be back in 20
So,
minutes. But
around
I'll just
8:30.
sit here and watch his show too.
Thanks, you guys.
Okay, what do I do? Spotlight.
I'm going to give you my spotlight, my moment in the spotlight.
Spotlight. Oh, it's here. This spot. This is such a learning curve for all of us. I don't see spotlight now. Oh, here it is.
No, he's on the spot.
Okay, you're on the spotlight. So go
Put him back on,
to
Put him back on.
So for everyone else in the room, am I nice and big in your
you're
in
big.
your space? Okay. It's a big ego thing for me. So, all right, welcome back, Carolyn. Thanks for that. I think eye candy is a great way to describe a lot of what you've been up to. So thank you for that. For those of you who are new, I'll introduce myself again. You might have heard this before. I'm going to tell you all over again. My name is Grant Withers, and I'm a visually curious, multidisciplinary artist pushing photography into uncharted territory. And my photography ranges from the traditional landscapes, people pictures, shots of my dog, to abstract and even into the surreal, as some of you may know. And on top of that, I've been also incorporating some sculpture and art installation into my practice. So I'm really trying to mix it up. I'm having a great time. I often say that I'm trying to break photography so that I can play with the pieces. And when I put them back together and they don't quite fit right, that's okay too. I end up coming up with something that no one has ever thought of. I'm going to show you guys a bit of a slideshow. Now let's see if that works. So those of you who may have seen my first attempt at this did not see my my video, but let's see if I can make a slideshow work. And I'll talk a bit while that's happening. I'm going to share the screen over here. Desktop 2. Carolyn, if you can unmute yourself, if you see any technical problems, I'd love to. I mean, I don't want to hear it, but I want to hear it. All right, can you see?
I can see your Photoshop screen. Yeah, and now I see your.
We're running.
Yes.
Yes,
Awesome.
you're running.
Okay, but not anymore, are we? I just killed it. I'm coming back. Yes.
Yes.
Yay. So I love photographing old surfaces, old places, gritty and rough edges. It's a bit like myself, I suppose, a bit of an autobiography. If you're the same way, if you like the stories that some of these places and surfaces tell, I encourage you to look up a Japanese aesthetic or worldview called wabi-sabi. I've added it to the chat room earlier on. If you scroll up in the chat, you'll see the reference to wabi-sabi. It's the beauty of impermanence and imperfection. And another great word for you to check out is palimpsest. If you can say it 10 times fast, you win a prize. Wabi-sabi and palimpsest have led me to the back alleys, the old industrial neighborhoods, the rougher parts of town here in Metro Vancouver, and even in cities around the world. I enjoy the grittier side of some of these places. Anyone in the Burnaby Heights area, or even in your own town, have you seen kind of the faded, torn posters and ads for moving services and stuff on the lamp posts on the street corners? Wave if you know what I'm talking about at all. Anybody? All right. So those surfaces, those peeling posters and cracks in the pavement, those are the kind of things that I love. And a lot of the source material for these pieces. Now these are composites often, or been manipulated digitally. But a lot of these have been taken on the street. They're street photography, but some of them are actually photographs of the street themselves. And another big influence for me, and you'll see in these shots, is hard edge abstract painting. The bold lines and shapes and the colors in the urban environment are front and center in a lot of my work. Here we have a bunch of basketball and sports courts that have gone through the grant filter. And if I could paint, if I could dip my brush in a can of paint and put a canvas on the wall and paint it, this is the kind of stuff that I would produce. This is how I see and how I create my art. So there's a playfulness going on between the hard and the soft, the new and the old, and it's a great kind of dance. And a lot of these works are made by combining multiple images and textures that are photographed at different times and in different locations. And right out of the camera, some of them would make great pieces of art on their own, as far as I'm concerned. But more often than not, they'll just add to my ever-growing catalog of source material that I'll be using in more complex pieces like what you're seeing here. So I might spend 20 minutes photographing the cracks in a sidewalk or the peeling paint on a building, lines in a tennis court, the posters and ads on the telephone poles on the street corner. My dog hates it. Every time she sees me pull the camera out and her leash at the same time, she kind of does a little palm slap to the face, and she's like, okay, off we go. And she just sits while I do my thing. So I'll take these digital images and blend them and collage them so that their stories and their graphic qualities combine and intertwine, and totally new stories are told. And if you have any questions on these or any kind of favorites you want me to talk about, put a note in the chat, and Carolyn and I will try to get me to go back, but just kind of running through a few of these with you.
Wow.
It's really gratifying to print and handle and then hang some of my art on the wall, get them out of the computer into the real world, into the natural environment. And some of you here tonight have some of my art on your walls, and it's an honor to know that you see my art every day, and hopefully it's still fresh and it makes you smile. So I could take objects and lines or patterns which exist in three-dimensional space and make them look like they've been painted on a canvas hanging on your wall. It's a bit like alchemy, where I can transform something that has light and shadow and gravity and all these natural or normal reference points, and I can kind of erase those and add new ones and layer them together to try to confuse you a little bit and transport you into another I was going to say another dimension. That sounds a little bit ominous, but in a good way, another dimension. So that's kind of what you're seeing here. I don't want to stop. I don't want to stop. I want to stop. I'm going to stop that one. I want to take you a bit behind the scenes to show you a video. Fingers crossed. Carolyn, I'm counting on you, or Christine, I'm counting on you. I'm going to show you a slideshow of some of the behind the scenes and how I do this. So this is what I do. You'll be able to see my Photoshop screen in this video. If any of the Zoom windows are hiding the right side of your screen, maybe shift those out of the way, because maybe move it to the left side, because the right side is kind of where all my Photoshop layers are, all the little bits and pieces I'm using and hiding and revealing and layering. So there's a bit of action happening over there too. All right. Where are you guys? All right, share a screen. Let's share a screen. Where are they? Well, that's interesting. This might work.
Okay.
Do you guys see a whole bunch of windows with
No, Grant, I see your photo, the green. It looks like a landscape picture with green, and I also see the...
Is it moving?
There it goes. Now we're going.
It works. Okay.
Okay.
I'm just going to click a button and step back so I don't touch anything. This is just a quick 1-minute video, and then I might run another one, but here, enjoy. We're good?
Yeah.
Yes. Tell me that worked.
It did.
Give me a thumbs up, everybody, if you saw
Thumbs
it.
up.
Yay! And do this if you liked it. Yay! Okay, now touch your ears. Ah, Simon didn't say touch your ears. Anyways, Gloria, you know how corny I am. Sorry about that. So yes, that's a bit of a sneak peek. And if I were to edit that quickly, I'm sure I'd break my computer and probably myself. But that's probably about I think it even said at the beginning, a 5-minute edit crammed down into a tiny space. The images you saw on there, or sorry, the colors you saw me adding to that, incidentally, those lines are power lines from our neighborhood here in the Heights. These sagging power lines and the straight ones, now I'm starting to see them in reverse as the lines outlining landscapes and oceanscapes. It's a totally different way of seeing it. It's amazing. So I flipped that upside down in the video you saw. And for a while I was using just colors from Photoshop. Blue, that looks like a cool kind of stark blue for sky. We'll stick some yellow in there for a little bit of golden hour light, maybe some green that's going to represent trees. And I realized that the colors I was using are totally fake. If I want this to be a photograph or have elements of photography, I need to use photographs in it. So I went through my inventory and I found a bunch of photos that I had taken of stormy ocean scenes, landscapes with actual trees and actual skies, sunsets and golden hour periods in the coast for a trip I did to Victoria on the ferry. And I was sampling all those little zones. So I don't know if you could see in detail, but all the palette of colors I had, it was called Stormy Ocean Cloud 1, Stormy Ocean Cloud 2, Sunset 1, Sunset 2. So these were actual colors from real photographs, from real scenes. So what you saw me layering on that image, using a paint can effect, it's called, dropping in these colors. Those are real colors from real photographs. So I feel it's more of a genuine artifact in the very end. Thank you, Anna. So that in the end I can say, this is a photograph, or this is photography. So everything in there comes from my photographs. Do you guys have any questions or comments? I haven't looked in the. Well, it looks like you were drawing those. Yes, and you're right, it did. And I am giving away a few secrets. I feel I'm literally pulling back the curtains, Ron. You're right. Thanks for the incredible abstracts comment. All right, I just want to make sure I'm not missing any questions.
Grant, I really like your work. I think your work is extremely strong in the elements of art, lines, especially lines and shapes, and they're very imaginative.
Thank you, thank you. If you now, how do I unmute people, Carolyn, or give people the option to do so?
I'll unmute them all for us.
Okay.
So now everybody has the opportunity to unmute yourself. Okay. So you can just click on your own little microphone and then you'll be able to say something. So it looks like Jerome has a question. Christina.
Grant, how long does it take you to build up your
Chelsea.
inventory of photographs to draw your colors from?
Unmute Grant.
Can't hear.
Unmute Grant.
I didn't unmute myself.
Oh,
I'll figure this out one day.
okay, Grant.
So
Ron, you have a question for Grant?
Yes. Ron, do you want to repeat that
Grant,
for
I'm
us?
just curious how long it took you to build up your inventory of colors that you were able to use from the photographs. So it looks like a huge inventory.
That one was probably based on only about half a dozen photos. I'd like to think that that inventory is going to get bigger, so that if I'm creating, say, forest scenes, imaginary forest scenes, I'll have a collection of images of colors from that as well. So it'll probably depend on the trajectory that I take with that body of work. If I start recognizing that I'm running out of new colors, new sky colors, or new forest colors, and new ocean colors, I might have to get more. Or like I said, if I end up trying to create a different kind of illusion or a different type of abstract that represents a totally different space, I'll have to find those colors too. And I might even add in, I think at the end of that one, we saw a crow. I think I added a crow into that one. A few of you know my affinity for crows. I just had to throw that in there. It's the only kind of real, aside from the power lines, it's the only real reference once it's done to reality. So it's still a new body of work for me. So I'm not sure how 100% abstract it should be, or if I should be dropping in, actual clouds, for example, or whether that would kind of break the illusion. So I'd love to hear your comments. Do you think I should stick with totally abstract and not even put any clouds in, or what do you guys think?
Alfie has a question for you.
Yes.
Grant?
Alfie, can you hear me? Can I hear you? Do you have yourself unmuted?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I didn't know I had a question.
Oh, okay.
I do
Okay,
like
I'm putting you on the spot.
Christine has a question. Christine, you have a question? No? Okay, sorry. But,
Do you have anything you'd like to share with the class?
Anna?
No? No, we're good.
Anna? Okay.
How about, now I have a couple minutes before I'm supposed to turn the reins over to Carolyn. Can I show you one more show? Oh, hang on, Anna does have her hand.
Okay.
Yeah, I did have a question actually, Grant.
Yes, please.
How big are these images? Like what's the size that you imagine them to be displayed?
Really, you want to ask me that question? I'm glad you asked. I am glad you asked. Honestly, my dream is to have my art printed huge. I see giant lobby displays in luxury hotels. I see, huge corporate lobbies. I don't know how many households could accommodate the size of art that I want to mount on a wall. But it really ranges. I mean, some of these are like they could be little gems. You have a couple of my little gems on your wall. And I think it's kind of navigating through my community of supporters and collectors and attracting people who want to work together on a project like that. And if their vision kind of matches mine with something grand and something spectacular, then I'm all for it. But thanks for that.
Awesome. Thanks, Grant.
All right, do we have time for one more?
Yeah, you've got about 4 minutes.
All right, I can do 4 minutes. Now that I've mastered this stuff, right? Let's see. No, that's not the one. I've got way too many windows open here. No, we just saw that one. Let me just close that one right out. So you got, I'm burning up my a few minutes here, aren't I? I don't know any good jokes. I don't. No, it's all coming back down to that one. Well, it looks like we're having, we're going to have one show per show, one show per session. I thank you all so very much for joining me. I'm going to turn the spotlight literally over to my buddy Carolyn here. I'm going to take me off spotlight and give spotlight to Carolyn. Carolyn,
Okay.
we have some people stick around and there's some new folks showing up for your show. Thanks, everybody. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Grant.
You
It was
bet.
beautiful to see your work.
Thank you.
So, yeah, well, next time we have an art show, we'll make sure you're all invited and you could see it.
I'm also going to show
Anyway,
you guys.
Grant likes to cut up his pictures and not show them as photographs either. So that's really unique also, right? Your lantern pictures.
You bet. You bet.
So anyway, this second half of my pictures are manipulation, which is taking the photos into Photoshop and just playing. And lots of times people say, well, what do you do with them? And in all honesty, lots of times the best answer is you get a bottle of wine, you have a few drinks, and you go and you play. Okay, so that's one way. So some of them I'll be able to remember off the top of my head, which effects I've used, and others I have no idea. You know, it's such a combination where you can use 3 and 4 different things. Some of this stuff is brand new. There's one picture that is quite old, but some of it was just played for. What advantage to manipulation or playing on the computer is there's so many apps that can be done on a cell phone. So you can do this kind of stuff with a cell phone. And you guys, the digital is so high on a lot of new cell phones that you'll be able to make your big pictures. You can actually go 30 by 40 on some of the pictures. And so feel free to play with your apps on the phone, on an iPad. And if you're interested in it seriously, the 2 softwares you want to use would be Photoshop, which is industry standard, and the other one, if it's quite expensive today. So I would highly recommend Elements. Adobe Elements is a really good software. It gives you everything that Photoshop does that as a photographer you will need, and it's $100 or $125. So it's a really good bang for your buck. So if you just bear with me, I'll get this going. It's a shorter slideshow, and then I'm going to go over them and tell you what I did on them. So. Oops, no, I want to go back. Thank you very much, you guys. So any questions, you're free to write it in the chat. So you can write it in the chat. I want to just go back and show some of these pictures, and I'm just going to talk about them very briefly. And I'm going to unmute you all. So you'll have the freedom just to speak up and talk and ask a question as we go. So right now you're all unmuted. You'll be able to unmute. You just have to go up to the top and unmute. And ask to unmute. Okay, and so I'm just gonna go back to the full frame and we'll do it like this.
You have to share still.
Yeah. Okay. So this particular picture is actually done by shaking a camera. So if you want an effect like that, you could do it in an app. You could do it in Photoshop and try wind, but it was actually done on the camera. And I just used a long exposure and then kind of moved the camera while I took the picture. This is polarization. It's very simple to do. And one of the reasons I want to show you this is because it's a really common one in the small apps that are in the cell phones. You'd be able to find that quite easily if you like that effect. This is a filter in Photoshop. It's under stained glass. It's like a stained glass under that. And this one, how come I can't slow it down? Pause. This is one of my favorite photographs that I've ever done. This is done in Photoshop using layers, and you can see there's a ballet foot there and the tulip. This is a background. It was actually a curtain, and this was the inside of a tulip, and then it was actually manipulated, and the perspective and the shape of it was all deformed. And then this whole background is actually one flower that is just so pulled apart to get a separate color.
So how many layers in that one, Carolyn?
There'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers.
Very pretty.
Yeah, and actually I did photograph the dancer's foot. So I don't use other people's photographs. The only time I would use somebody else to do it would be to use an old photograph. But otherwise I have so many photographs in stock that I don't really need to use somebody else's pictures. So this is some work I did last year for actually the sidewalk, our first walk in the community grant. What did we call it?
The living room art on the heights. Oh no, that was the Brady Heights
the art crawl.
group.
These are 3 pictures I did for the art crawl. We had never had an art crawl before. And so these 3 pictures were done, and this little hummingbirds were photographed and then added individually into the picture. Most of the flowers were on the mannequins. So the main work here was done with the hummingbirds.
Hey, Carolyn, this is, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
These pieces that you showed us, or this series that you revealed to us at the art crawl,
Right.
Personally, I thought this is one of the most bold, the bold art that I've seen you create. It really stands out from the serene, soft bokeh images that you were showing us a little while as well before. These have stories. These have, faces. You've really, I think, really stretched into new territory with these things. It's
well,
really fun.
this was, thanks, Grant. This was a lot of continuation of a lot of work that I did on Sears, the mannequins from Sears. I totally went crazy going down to Sears. For the people who live in our district knew that our one of our main shopping centers closed. And when it was closing, I was there every day and I photographed, and I have thousands of pieces of pictures of mannequin. I'm very drawn to mannequins. Maybe they're just more available than humans to photograph, but I photograph a lot of mannequins and manipulate it. So this was kind of like a continuation of it all.
10 minutes.
So Carolyn, did you do the flowers as well on those, or were those also photographs that were overlaid on the mannequins?
The mannequins had a lot of the flowers already added to it. It was part of an event, an international event. And so a lot of the florals on the mannequins were done by florists.
Do you know where that was? Do you remember offhand?
The
event?
You know, I have photographed so many of them, I don't know where it was. It's been at Oak Ridge. It was last year, it was done in the hotels. So I don't know where that particular one is. I'd have to look at the files.
No, that's fine. I was just curious whether that was part of your artwork as well, because I know Grant has wandered off into some, if you will, non-photographic adventures, which are quite fun. So I was curious if you were doing the same sort of thing.
Yeah, that was actually a commercial job where I got paid to go and photograph it, and then I used it for art. I added onto it for art. So
8 minutes.
So this here picture is a new one. I was just looking for different effects, and when I did this one, do you see the dog?
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so some of you know I photograph a lot of pets, having a pet company, and have done a big show on called Walk with Pets. And so I just really, this was just happened by accident. So sometimes just have really creative accidents happening. And this here is one that just happened. I just love it with the dog chewing the flowers, because some dogs will do that.
So you call that bite me, yeah?
And that would be by me. This is, I threw this in. This is actually, I love flowers that end up looking like very sensuous fabrics and outfits. And that was one that I did. And I've used it for black and white and for color. I've sold both of it this way. This was done very, very high speed to really get the grain. So, and I'm not sure which one I like, whether I like the color or the black and white. You guys can tell me after.
I love this one.
Yeah, this is a new piece. This is, I've done it in the past, many years ago, a lot with words on it. So I found I was playing a lot with the words. And I'll probably continue more with this. It looks like almost like a piece of glass.
Yeah.
But it's actually a tulip. But I loved the way it worked, and then I just really felt like it needed some words. So I'll probably continue playing with some of this.
What type of app, or what did you do to that to get this color? Like the...
Oh, you know what?
7 minutes.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think I inversed it. Is that Alfie asking the question?
Yeah.
Alfie, I think I inversed the color.
Okay.
So I went into inverse the color, and I also did outlines.
Okay.
Okay, so it's either when you work in Photoshop, it makes a big difference if you do outlines and then like if you take two filters, if you do two filters, and if I tell you I did this project in two filters, you've got to try it both ways, because one time a filter will work a different way. So the first one does it. So you have to try it both ways, but outlines and inverse. Okay, try those.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
This is a new picture that I've done just recently. My little granddaughter is nuts about purple, and we happened to go for a little walk in the neighborhood, and we saw these. So I had taken a brush and I took her there, and I said, was teaching her about imagination. I said, could you imagine painting the flowers? So she would just imagine, and then I had to color them like a child. So, you know, at first I did all this wonderful technique, and I had to go back and scribble them up, because that's the way she would color or paint. But, And this is black light. That might be black light. I do a lot, like I say, with words. This is doing some with smudging, where I'm selectively smudging. You can see this is all normal, and then some of it is selectively smudged. This is one of my new favorites. This is where the color has actually been decreased. The saturation has been totally decreased, and then possibly an outline added to it. But I was just really impressed with the way it came out. What I have found is if the original photograph is beautiful, it doesn't matter what you do to it, it will actually end up still being beautiful, even if you apply different photos. And this photo, believe it or not, it's a white floral, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And yet it's so stunning this way too, or I personally really like it.
Carolyn?
This was a combination of going into my files. This here is, of course, the snowbirds. And after the accident of the snowbirds, I was online, and they were saying, oh, can you post things of pictures of the snowbirds? So I looked in my collection, and I had these pictures when they were in Abbott's White Rock one year. And then I just started playing, and this is an image, and that is an image. And then, so this has 3 images. And no filters done to it. It's all natural. This was just a play. I just wanted to play a lot. And so that's 3 pictures, 1, 2, 3. And then this here one is, this is a tiny little ornament about 2 inches tall. These little ornaments are about a ½ an inch. And then, so this has about 8 layers in it. And then this one I showed you just to give you some idea. This was done as a card for my granddaughter, because she's so nuts about bunnies. And so that particular one has, you can see, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pictures. So it has, the bunnies was a vertical shot, so I had to make 3 layers of the bunnies. This is the tulip that I photographed just recently. I didn't like the red head, but I love the leaves. So I just put a new tulip. I wanted the orange. I thought the orange went better with the gold tinfoil. So I added a new head on another particular one, and then wrote some text. So that's it.
Carolyn, I have a question for you.
Yes?
Or a comment, I guess. It looks like both you and I use our digital tools to add drama or create serenity, or we're using these tools to emphasize or reduce emphasis on things to tell a story or to create a mood. I found that shot you gave us a moment ago where it was rather white, and there's an arching multi-flowered piece that kind of went down from upper left to bottom right. That one really hit me because so much has been taken away from that scene, and you've left these very subtle little details that are familiar, yet I'm kind of wanting more, but at the same time, my eyes are totally settled on what's there, and it was just this perfect balance of reality and kind of fantasy all in one. So it's delightful knowing that you love playing in that sandbox as well.
Yeah, Photoshop is actually a wonderful tool. Been at it for years, before they even had layers in it. You can just do so much with it, and it's wonderful to do photography just where it's one picture and that's it. But most pictures do not, at least for me, there isn't just like one answer. Everything is like a collage for an answer in life. And so same with art, is sometimes you need a collage. Just like doing paper collage. I love doing paper collage with my photos too. So collaging is just a really way to be able to express something in multiple layers. So any questions?
Yes, I have a question, Carolyn.
Yeah. Yeah, Donna, go ahead.
go back a few pictures to, or a few photos to the one with the blue. It looked like blue drapery. How did you make that effect with the blue? It had the blue, which looked like drapery, and then it had the red.
This one?
Well, she can't see it unless you do a share screen.
Like a Zoom background, like a.
This one?
Yes. Yes.
Oh.
How did you make that? How did you do that effect? with the blue?
This here, actually, this particular background was done in iPads. It's a little iPad app that is that creates it. So it's just a little iPad app. You throw it in.
And you said that these were ornaments. What do you mean? I don't understand.
Well, the little bunnies were like a little ornament that you would have in the house, like a little 2-inch ornament, just a little ornament, you know, figurine.
Hmm.
I
And that
photograph a lot of
photo?
figurines. Pardon?
Like, I didn't see any bunnies in that photo though. I'm not understanding that.
Oh, well, I'll send you a picture and you'll see. But yeah, I use figurines.
Okay.
I've been doing collaging for many years. And so did a whole collection of work many years ago called Manipulated Seasons. And I used to go into people's houses and say, can I just photograph your stuff? And then create a picture of it, you know, because everybody's stuff is kind of interesting. And if, you know, so, and then I could create pictures for them, and it was really interesting in that sense. And so, yeah, I've done a lot of collaging over the years, tons. So,
2 minutes.
any other question?
Pictures you did of the construction.
Oh yeah, thanks, Alfie. You know, it was interesting because when I was doing this, I started to think about the work that I've done over the years, and I have actually used flowers a lot. And Alfie knows because she bought some of them. When I lived in Port Moody, my background, for the people who don't know me, over most of you do, is I am a trained photographer and commercial photographer, and I worked in commercial photography for years. And I've always done photography on my own, just because I was so busy photographing things that were just making money that maybe weren't interesting. So I did a lot of projects, and I've always been interested in documentary of communities. I've always been an activist, more or less, in a community. And commercial urbanism really attracts me, and I can't stop photographing it. Construction sites just wow me. And when I was living in Port Moody, I was walking around in shock at how the growth was happening. And so what I did is I did a big spoof on the commercialism and on the construction, and I call it construction bloom. So I photographed construction sites of all the changes in Port Moody, and I changed guys hitting, you know, instead of holding lumber, they were holding bouquets of flowers, and it was very well received. Okay. So yeah, so I've actually used photos a lot in my life, you know. Okay. I tend to photograph dancers, construction sites, flowers, and now grandchildren. So
it all comes around.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to thank you. Grant, I know, wants to thank you. And this has been a really rewarding experience for us to learn this new technology. And you know, thanks for coming. It really means a lot to us. And it sure is nice that we been able to share this in a rainy day. And yeah. And Grant, you wrote something about a disco party?
At 9 o'clock, when we wrap up in our room, everyone is invited to come over to the living room. So we're in the dining room now. Head on over down the hall on the left, you'll see the living room. Back at the homepage, you can just enter that room after you leave this one. And at 9 o'clock, Junwen and Aswini's son, Kalyan, DJ Kalyan Waff, will be running the music for a after party dance event. So you're all welcome to hang out there. his work is amazing. So you'll be amazed at the stuff this guy's doing.
So any final questions for Grant or I? Out of just show of hands, how many of you are photographers? How many, like any kind, like cell phone photographers? Quite a few.
Yeah, you're in there.
And gardeners, how many are gardeners? Got lots of gardeners?
Getting there.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we're so lucky that we, even though we are housebound to some degree, we're allowed out 7 days out of the week. Some countries you're not allowed out every day. So we've been very lucky that we've been able to go out on the street, and whether it's cracks in the cement or a tree in the sky, we've got lots to photograph and make art with. And then you can
Carolyn,
just add dancing.
Carolyn, just a quick question, if I can, for you and Grant.
Mhm.
Photoshop is obviously a tool of choice for a lot of good photographers. It's a very intimidating program in terms of where do you start and how do you navigate your way through it to develop any sort of facility. Have you got any thoughts that either you or Grant could share on the how to digest that program?
Okay, definitely it's a really hard program, and I guess I was very lucky because I had a technical background in photography, so the terminology to me was very normal to go into dodging and burning and all those, and filters, and so for me it was the natural progress, but it wasn't as intimidating when I first started. It was, but it wasn't. So what I would suggest if you were to start is don't get into 6,000 layers like the one picture that Grant showed you. You can do a lot with just 2 or 3 layers. You saw that nice, I think a nice picture that I did with the snowbirds and then a flower and an ornament. So it was just three. So lots of things can have lots of layers, but the more layers you get, the more complicated it gets. There's so many sections in it. You could spend one day just on filters and just go through filters and just play with the filters. And then another week or so go into the adjustments and spend time in the adjustments. There's so much just in the adjustments. There's so much on the layers. But that's what makes it so unique and fun, is that you can't get bored with it. Grant, you want to add?
Yeah, I was thinking, and I've talked to a few other photographers in the neighborhood about this very thing. When you have so many buttons and switches and dials to play with, you can definitely find some amazing results and then kind of lock those in your memory to maybe come back to them after you finish playing. But think about what your goal is. If you're really just trying to enhance an image to make it pop a little bit or change the way it feels, then very subtle use, a very sort of low-grade use of those sliders and adjustments would be warranted. And the more you push those tools, the farther out of reality you'll get. So you have to decide for yourself what you're after.
One thing I want to add about Photoshop is, one advantage to Photoshop is that everything you do at Photoshop is in the history. So you can always go back and do it and look into the history to see what you've done. So never ever flatten the image. Like, always keep the PSD files as separate. And then for your output, when you know where you're going to take it, then you would make your final picture, whether it's for a website or a digital competition or a print or whatever, then you would make a flattened picture, because there's so much power in that software, you want to be able to figure out what you did again. And so I think as a learning tool, one of the best things you can use is the history, you know, because just go and play. Like I say, get a glass of wine and just sit and play, and it's
You
kind
can't
of like
break it.
dancing. What?
You can't break it.
No,
Yeah, you can't break it, you know.
I find there's so many tutorials in Photoshop even that really help it when you're learning it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
But
can be
just
overwhelming.
Yeah.
just save the PSD file, and then you can always go back in your history. And I don't know if you know this, Alfie, but you can if you have a file and there's something you don't like it, you can actually remove that one part in the middle of it, and then it will just continue on. So,
Yeah.
any other questions?
Thanks, Sean.
Oh,
Ron, thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you, guys.
This was quite the experiment.
Carolyn and Grant.
Oh,
Pardon?
you bet.
Celeste?
Thank you.
Oh,
You
you're
are
welcome.
very
Thank you.
welcome.
We
You're
appreciate
very
all
welcome.
of you coming. This, my sister-in-law is here. She's all the way from the Caymans.
Wow.
And
And
I hope you, oh, and my daughter's here. So thank you, Chelsea. I just want to say something about the Caymans. They had very strict COVID rules. They were only allowed out of their house alternative days,
wow.
depending on your alphabet. So it's quite a bit different. We had like a fair amount of freedom if you consider in that.
Well,
So
take care, everybody.
yes,
Do what you need to do.
there's lots of photographs that are safe.
Well, yes.
We have to do this again, Carolyn.
Yeah, it was very
You never
enjoyable.
know.
Now that
You never
we've
know.
bucked around with the ins and outs, and you know, we can actually maybe possibly do it with way less learning
We've
curve.
learned a lot. You guys should watch out for the first annual art crawl in the Heights. Some of you came to the one we had last year. Carolyn was part of that too. And I see Branka down below. You guys, you know what I'm talking about. We partnered with the North Caribbean Neighborhood House and helped them with fundraising and community building using art, a bit like we're doing now with the fundraising part. And we might be doing something virtual. We might be doing something in real life. Depends on where we're at in September or October. So watch for that if you're in the Burnaby area. So more art and community to come.
This particular project was actually a grant by Vancouver Foundation, small neighborhood. Am I getting it right, Branka? Small neighborhood grants. And Ewan and Grant actually applied for the grant and got this grant. And because of that grant, it enabled us to do this. Branka, would you like to say something about it?
Carolyn, the grants are still available.
Oh, well, we could maybe do another one. Maybe I'll
Yes,
apply.
grants are still available. July 3rd.
So you guys look up online the Neighborhood Small Grants Vancouver Foundation, something through your local neighborhood house, and look at different ways to build community or to strengthen community on your own street, in your own neighborhood. It's a lot of, I think most of it's virtual now, but there are so many ways, and we're so glad to see your faces here tonight and that you joined us in our community tonight. It's 9 o'clock. You guys have been wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us.
So I think technically we have to leave the meeting to go to the other room. Is that how it works, Grant?
Yep, we're all going to disappear from here in a moment. We're all going to leave, and we'd love to see you join us in the.
So you actually have to find a button and click it, and it says leave.
Yeah, the bottom is leave.
And then go to living room, I think.
Come back. Go back to the main page.
We'll
see you in the living room, guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cheers. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
night.
you very much. Bye, Donna. Bye, Elsie.
Carolyn, it was a pleasure.
Megan.
I love your background, Carolyn.
Pardon?
I love your background there. It's pretty.
Oh, you know what? Yes. You know, the cherry trees at this time of the year are just so beautiful. How do you not photograph them, hey? I know Japan thinks they've got one on us, but you know, there's a few streets here that are breathtaking.
Yeah.
So.
Dawn, thanks so much for tuning in tonight.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we leave.
We're going to take off from here. We might see you over at the dance party.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Grant.
Good night, you guys. Thank you.
Bye. Bye,
Bye.
Megan.